This is Mrs. Cantrell, and I'm going to lead you through a really quick drawing practice where we're going to draw the same object, and we're all going to work from the same picture here, the picture of this cow skull. We're going to draw it 3 times. So the first time I'm going to have you draw it is just with no instruction at all. Just do the very best you can. The only thing is I want you to use a timer, and you can actually use your Chromebook. If you just go to Google Chrome and type in 5-minute timer, it will pop up with its own little timer here, and you can hit start and just draw that skull as quickly as you can. Not as quickly as you can, just don't take longer than the 5 minutes. Just do the best you can in those 5 minutes. So go ahead and pause this and do your first drawing. Okay, great job. That first drawing may have left you with varying degrees of stress. If you are frustrated, please just take a deep breath, calm down, and listen to some of the tips that I have to give you. Before you do your second drawing, I want to point out some of the most common mistakes that people make when they are observing either an object or a picture of an object and then trying to copy it basically in a drawing. The first thing I always see with students is they draw too hard. So quite often I will have a student who is trying to draw their picture and they get around, they might be doing okay, and all of a sudden they realize, oh, that did not turn out the way I want, and then they take their eraser and they try to get rid of it, and they're always left with these ghost lines behind. Let's try to practice a different technique. Let's try, rather than holding your pencil where you're used to holding it, down here close to where the graphite comes out, choke back a little bit and loosen your grip too. Loosen your grip, hold it closer towards where the eraser is, and instead of drawing all from your wrist, try moving your entire forearm as you are drawing. And that will feel kind of uncomfortable at first, but then you'll notice that you can make looser, sketchier lines that aren't as dark. And the nice thing about doing that is as you are moving through and trying to make your drawing, you can go back and pull out the lines that you want to keep with a little bit more precision. And you don't have to shake the earth then to get rid of any unwanted lines. Okay, so that's the first tip. Draw lighter. The second tip is to avoid using what I call the cookie cutter technique. I often see students who start looking at one area of the picture and they try to follow that line around with their pencil as their eye is also following it, which is a fun little observational game, but it's not the most reliable way to produce a really accurate picture. So often I'll have people get down to the end and they go, oops, there's something not right about this. And because you've sort of blocked yourself in, it feels as if you have to completely restart everything all over again. Well, if you're considering what I mentioned in our first tip about loosening up, giving yourself lots of guidelines, and actually drawing through the object, that'll help. The first thing you can look for to help with this is just sort of use your eye to edit the object that you're drawing down to more basic shapes. So, for instance, I can sort of see a parallelogram in the head here, especially since there's a corner almost where the top of the head is. And then the rest of this sort of fits inside of a triangle. I can even break down these horns into some more basic shapes to help make sure that those shapes are stacked on top of each other in a more accurate way than if I were to just simply eyeball it completely on my own. So instead of starting on the outside edge, I'm now going to start with those very same guiding shapes. And notice how I'm drawing them very lightly. And then from here, I would go in and look for more accurate details. So try some of these techniques and see if your second drawing perhaps is stepped up a little bit more from your first drawing. Go ahead and pause and set another 5-minute timer for your second drawing. All right, hopefully that second drawing was a little bit more successful, but now we're going to go for one more try, the third try. I'm going to give you a couple more tips here. This time when you are looking for all of these intricate details, I want you to consider relationships. So we talked about breaking the space down into some really general shapes. So if you were using like my parallelogram, I could see where you may have even broken it down into like a circle with a triangle, whatever works for you. The other thing you want to look at, besides just those first basic shapes, are where the details relate to each other. So if I have, let me put my parallelogram back in here really quick. If I'm looking for where this eye socket goes, I want to look at where it lies in that parallelogram. So it lies, if there was a line going right through the middle here, I guess let's go ahead and draw it. It would be on this half, occupying most of that space. I can also then see how those lines, those detailed lines, are almost parallel as they come across my little halfway line there. And then I have the top of this little cracked shape here. The top of the skull from where I actually drew this parallelogram comes outside and then drops back down. Then I want to look for, like in the triangle, the negative space. The negative space is everything that's not the object itself. So basically like the background here. This right here to the left that I'm now coloring in red. All of that is negative space. So rather than trying to eyeball that line, I can now carve out this little chunk out of my triangle and now have a better idea about where that part of the skull dips in and comes back out. So those are ways that I would go about finding the more accurate places to put all of these little details, all of these little divots and cracks, shaded areas. I should also be clear that I'm not concerned about shading in this drawing. What we're doing right now is more like a cross contour drawing where we're looking, or just a contour drawing, where we're looking for the edges of objects. Okay. So look for relationships. Draw some loose guidelines if you need to. So if I want to see how this little divot relates to where this eye socket is, I can go ahead and draw in like a straight line across there to help me figure out where this dips down. Those sort of little cross hairs really help, especially when I get up to the horns here, when I'm trying to figure out how far up do the horns touch. Well, they almost touch on like a parallel plane, just slightly angled. And again, I can sort of eyeball the negative space that's left between the horns. So I'm making a lot of extraneous marks, but in the end, I can get rid of all the extra marks that I don't want to leave. And even without erasing them, if I just draw harder on the lines I want to keep, it will be very clear what my drawing looks like. All right. So go ahead and reset your timer. If you want to give yourself an extra minute, that's fine too. That way you can maybe find a few more extra details you weren't able to fill in before. But don't feel pressured like you have to draw for 20 minutes. This is just an exercise. So with your third drawing, Look for those relationships. Give yourself some extra crosshairs and guidelines. And be sure to observe what is actually there. One of the trickiest things about drawing is that our brain sort of tells us what should and shouldn't be there, but your eyes know best. So you just need to evaluate using your eyes and actually draw what you see, not what your brain thinks it should look like. Good luck. Can't wait to see what you draw.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.